This is pretty much how I looked the first time I assembled a 47-inch corner cabinet, and I opened up the assembly instruction to see that there is not much time spent explaining how to do the filler between the corner cabinet and the cabinet sitting next to it, apart from these four pictures. And they are not really in line with what I see in the online planner, because in the online planner we have a colored filler in the corner, and it looks much better if I have a colored door and I also have a colored filler, right? And as you can see to the left, there's even an option in the planner to choose which color this filler have to be, but we just don't know how to install it. So keep watching and I will show you how I do it. In this picture, you'll see the corner cabinet and a cabinet sitting next to it. And this is the most simple setup you can have. We have put in that filler that comes with the corner cabinet according to the instruction from Ikea. So it just sits there. But why can we not do that in every single case? Well, if we zoom in on the filler, you can easily imagine that if that filler right there is bright white and the side of the corner cabinet, which we can see is bright white, it will only look good if we have white doors. If we, on the other hand, have dark gray doors or dark blue doors or brown doors or any darker color that is very different from bright white, then it will look weird. So we want those fillers in the corner to have the same color as the doors we're putting on the cabinets. As you can see in this picture, I have double layered the fillers in the corner. I have added a filler on the filler that comes with the cabinet that once it's sitting vertically there, and I have added a piece of panel on the side of the cabinet. But that's only one way to do this. There is another way as well, and it looks like this. And at first glance, you may think that it looks like the other one, but it does not. So let me show you all three ways of doing that corner in the same picture, and I will explain the difference and when to use each of them. So here they are, the three different ways of doing it, and I will explain each of them in great details. The first one, though, is easy to skip by because that's the one that comes with Ikea, and it just sits with the filler between these two cabinets. And since the filler and the side of the corner cabinet is bright white, you only want to use that one if you're having a door that is white or bright white or matte white, and otherwise it will just be an eyesore, I find. But obviously you can do whatever you want, and if you want to have a white corner to a gray door, that's perfectly fine with me. But there's no other way than it will be white if you do it like this. In the next one, number 2 and number 3, we have to talk about that at the same time, because the difference between the two is, apart from the color of the filler, where one is dark gray and the other one is off-white, is that in number 2, the way I did it there is that the filler, which is cut from panel, right there with the arrow, is protruding the cabinet, and in number 3, it is sitting flush with the cabinet. And there is a reason for this. Since these pieces of filler or panel, small slices of panel, are cut from panel, there will obviously be one side of those pieces that are cut, meaning there's no paint on them. And in number 2, there's 2 of those edges we can see, whereas in number 3, there's only one. And that means in number 3, we can turn that piece of panel where the paint is on the edge, and we can turn that in the corner, because if you have something that is off-white and you make a cut, no matter how well you cut it, there will be a thin, dark line. And if that cut is towards the other piece of the panel, meaning it's right in the corner, you can easily see that dark line compared to if it is cut from a dark panel, which is clearly dark. And when the line is dark, you don't see it that easy. So when I do a kitchen that is either dark blue or dark gray, I can do the way I've done it here in number 2, because I can have the cut right in the corner. But if I have an off-white kitchen and I want to double up on those fillers, I have the cut towards the cabinet sitting next to the corner, right where that arrow is. So I have a painted edge in the corner, and that means I cannot have that protruding. But when you look at it and it's totally finished, it will look really nice, even though one of the pieces of panel is protruding and the other one is not, because the doors that goes on are covering this difference really well. I'm not sure I explained that really well, but the whole deal is that this is how I do it. If I have white, bright white, I use method number 1. If I have dark colors like the dark gray or dark blue or even dark brown or black, I use method number 2. If I have off-white like the butt bin, I use method number 3. Now that I have explained the 3 ways of doing the corner, I think it's in place to show you how I actually do it. So here we go. Method number 1 is the easy one, because all we have to do is take that filler that comes from Ikea and put it in between those 2 cabinets. There is a difference though, that I do not attach it to the corner cabinet before the cabinet has been put in place. And that means when both cabinets are sitting there, I have no access to those angle brackets that sits on the side. But it's not a big disaster, because what I do, I just screw from both sides inside the corner cabinet and inside the cabinet next to it into the filler and make sure that it's sitting right where I want it. The brackets, I never use those, as I just said, because the thing is that corner cabinet can slide either way to accommodate whatever adjustment you need to do in your whole layout. So it is not certain that it will sit exactly where IKEA thinks it should go. So ditch those brackets. You don't need them. If you put screws into the filler from both sides, that meaning from the inside of the corner cabinet and inside the cabinet sitting next to it, and if you reinforce the corner cabinet as I'm showing you in another video. Method number 2. Put the filler in place and let it be flush, almost flush, with the cabinet sitting next to the corner cabinet. Next, measure from that filler towards the opening of the corner cabinet. Not all the way to the inside of that door jamb, but right there where you can see 2 inches and 1/16 where I put an arrow. Please note that you don't want to make this filler too wide, so just make it so it's almost the width, because it doesn't matter that it doesn't go all the way to the filler that come with the cabinet. I'll show you later why, because there will be a gap in that corner, which will be covered by the next filler. Now you go and cut a piece of panel in those 2 inches and 1/16 in this case, and you clamp that to the side of the corner cabinet, and pay attention that it is sitting flush with that filler that is hanging on the side of the corner cabinet. And that filler has to be pressed all the way down, but it's important that you put that on so it's flush at the bottom of the filler, right? But furthermore, it's important that you also, in this case, press it to the left in the picture, so it's sitting really with a tight fit towards that door jamb, so you don't have a gap, right? Right from that door jamb going down, that's a 3/4 of an inch thick, that panel is sitting right next to it. No gap there. And when the panel is firmly secured in that location, you pre-drill from the inside and put in some screws from the inside the corner cabinet to secure that piece of panel in place. Do that now. Now it's time to measure and cut that other piece of the panel, and in this case you have to make it just on measurement and then a hair. It needs to be a tiny bit wider than what you're measuring, because we want to make sure that we have a tight fit in that corner, and you can only have that by making it a tiny bit too big. So here it is. I went to my table saw and I cut off a piece of panel where one side is painted and the other side obviously is not, because that's where I cut. And now you can take the filler from Ikea with the bracket mounted at one end, and you can take that away from the cabinet and you can clamp it together with that piece we just cut. Pay attention to where you want to put it, because it want to be flush towards the cabinet sitting next to the corner cabinet. That is the upper edge in this picture, right? So you want to make that to be flush, and you also want that filler that you have just cut to be flush at the bottom of the Ikea filler. That is to the left in the picture. So it will line up nicely with the filler you have added to the corner cabinet already. So you turn that one thing around and you pre-drill and you give it some screws, and you're using clamps, so you're absolutely sure that it sits in the right position. And when it has been secured, the piece of panel to the Ikea filler, you can put it back in place and you can put some clamp on to hold it firmly while you are putting on some screws from the inside again. From inside the cabinet sitting next to it, and from inside the corner cabinet. I do not put any screws into the colored filler in this case. I always put them into that white filler that sits in between, because should you be off a little bit, clearly you cannot do that from the left side in that cabinet. But are you doing it from the inside the corner cabinet, make sure that you line up with the white filler and put, I normally put 4 screws in, top, bottom, and 2, 1/3 up, and 2/3 up. And when that is done, you can pre-drill and add screws to the top of the bracket, as you see I'm doing in this picture. And that's it. Now it's all done. All you have to do is reinforce the corner cabinet, as I explained earlier, and as I have shown in another video how to do that. And here it is, the final result. I think it looks really great. If your table saw is not making a great cut in that very corner, you can take a brown marker and just run it down the edge of the left piece of this panel. And of course, before you assemble anything, but right after you make that cut, just do it very light. Don't press too hard. You don't want to make a dark line, but you can just make a fine line if there is any brighter color shining through. And if it's a dark gray, you can use a pencil. If it's a black panel, you can just use a black Sharpie. Run down the edge of that panel. Will make it look super sharp. Method number 3, and we are starting from scratch again. Here we have the corner and there's nothing sitting there. So the first thing we do is we put that filler from Ikea in, we put on that top bracket and let it hang between those 2 cabinets. Then you take a piece of scrap panel in the thickness of the panel that you want to put on that filler, and you hold it with your hand just like I do, and you position it on the side of that cabinet so it's almost flush at the cabinet. You can see it's almost flush at the front of that cabinet to the left. Then I suggest you put a clamp on it, just like I did in this picture, because then it's much easier to measure accurately from that panel towards the jamb of the opening in the corner cabinet. Next, you go and slice a piece of panel in the width that we just measured, and you bring it in and you clamp it. And again, you make sure that it lines up to the bottom of the filler, and you make sure that it's pressed all the way against that door jamb to the right of the corner cabinet. And then you secure it to the corner cabinet with screws from the inside. Once again, it's time to measure the width of the second filler, and as you can see here, I do that at the top and at the bottom as well. And especially important to do it at the bottom. And I should have said that in method number 2, but now you know it. You have to do it at the bottom too, because that's where the cabinet is very stiff. At the top, it can vary. The corner cabinet is kind of soft. So you want to measure at the bottom actually. So or do both. So you make sure that is parallel, but it is the bottom one that's most important. And when you have done that, you can go and cut another piece of filler. And this is not any different than method number 2. Now we have to attach that piece of filler to the filler from Ikea. And you clamp it on, and you make sure that it is flush at the front. In our case, to the left. That means that edge that is going towards the cabinet sitting next to the corner cabinet. So make sure that's flush, and also at the bottom, which is to our left in this picture. And then you add some screws as well. I use 4 screws, and make sure that you clamp close to where you're pre-drilling and screwing, otherwise they will be pushed away from each other. You don't want that to happen. So make sure that you do a good solid work here and put that piece of filler on the white filler. And now, just like we did before, we can put it in place, but now you can see that this one is pushed back, so it is sitting flush with the cabinet sitting next to the corner cabinet, right there at the arrow. And that means that the uncut side of that filler is now in the corner and not out towards the open where we can see it, because now we can have the cut edge, it's sitting next to the cabinet, so we cannot see it. And that is, as I explained before, because this is off-white, and it is very difficult to make a cut that is not showing any line at all. So if we put a painted edge towards the panel sitting on the corner cabinet, it will look a lot better. So that's it. Put it in there and pre-drill and give it some screws from the inside of the corner cabinet and also from inside of the cabinet sitting next to the corner cabinet. And again, just like before, don't put them in the panel filler, put them in the thick 3/4 of an inch thick filler that came with the corner cabinet. It will be much stronger. And when this is done, you can go ahead and pre-drill and put 2 screws in the top of that metal bracket that comes with the filler. And at the very end, put on the corner reinforcement. That is important. Now it's all done, and you have a beautiful looking and very strong corner cabinet. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you like this video, and I do hope that you will subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks again, and see you next time.